Did you know that Georgia has natural disasters? Now, we don't have the epic mudslides and wildfires and biblical earthquakes that they have out in California, but we do have our own natural disasters, including, but not limited to, tornadoes, droughts, floods, hurricanes, ice storms, and even earthquakes. That's right, Georgia has earthquakes. Most people don't know that. Can hardly believe it's true, but it is true. Hey, this is Parker Smith, and today we're talking about Georgia natural disasters. The first thing to know is that our natural disasters tend to be seasonal. We get tornadoes in the spring, droughts in the summer, hurricanes in the fall, ice storms in the winter, and flooding that can happen just any old time of the year. Tornadoes are quite common in Georgia during the spring. Georgia averages about 26 tornadoes a year, and in 2021 we actually had the 5th highest number of tornadoes of any state in the union, and that's higher than many of what we call tornado alley states. This last year has been a very bad one, with a March 2021 tornado causing major damage in Noonan, a suburb south of Atlanta. On New Year's Day, we had a very rare winter tornado in suburban Atlanta. And in April 2022, a 185-mile-an-hour tornado hit Pembroke, Georgia. That was the fastest tornado recorded anywhere in the United States so far this year. Two terms that get very confusing for people during tornado season is a tornado watch and a tornado warning. Tornado watch means they're watching for a tornado. A tornado warning means they've actually seen a tornado and you need to take cover immediately. The basement is the safest place to be in your house during a tornado, so when you hear that there's a tornado watch going on, you need to keep the kids and the pets close at hand, and you need to be ready to go into the basement at a moment's notice. It's a good idea to have some chairs and a radio in your basement, because sometimes you can be down there for a couple of hours if things get really scary. Let's talk about droughts in Georgia. One of the things that makes tornado and hurricane season doubly devastating are the periodic droughts that hit the state every 6 or 7 years. Now, Georgia is well known for its prodigious amounts of rainfall. I've talked about that many times in my videos. One of the things I haven't talked about is how we get these periodic droughts that just leave the state absolutely bone dry. Georgia has a big network of man-made lakes. These are all fed by rivers that by law have to maintain a minimum flow. So when the drought hits, the lake levels really start to drop, and you'll see a lot of docks and even boats resting on dry ground. If the droughts persist, often your lawns will go dormant, and you'll see these big cracks begin to open up in the Georgia red clay. So in the summers, when we have these droughts, they can leave the trees severely weakened, and then hurricane season rolls around, and that's when things get really crazy. One of the most well-known natural disasters to occur in Georgia is hurricanes. Is hurricanes or are hurricanes? What? You might be saying, only a tiny little sliver of Georgia is on the coast. How can you get hurricanes in Georgia? Surprisingly, it's much more common for hurricanes to make landfall by crossing over Florida and hitting the southwest part of Georgia. Now, by the time these hurricanes hit Atlanta, they're typically downgraded to tropical storm status, but they still bring very heavy rains and very high winds. I talked earlier about how these periodic droughts can weaken the trees. This is when things get really wild. When you take those weak trees and you add in tropical storm winds, those trees start to fall over like dominoes. They fall over, they drag down power lines, they crush cars, they crush houses. It's a very chaotic situation. Over the years, many people have been killed in their cars by falling trees, so it's much safer to stay in your house. Now, you think that would be common sense, but people get out and drive around during hurricanes. It's kind of crazy. Let's talk about snow and ice storms. Back in 2014, Atlanta experienced the humiliating episode known as Snowmageddon. Some people call it snowpocalypse. Other people call it Snowmageddon. I called it a disaster. Late in 2014, we had some sub-freezing weather, and it began to snow heavily, and this is rare in Atlanta, actually started to stick, especially on the roads. It was the middle of the day, and the schools decided to send the kids home early. Then all the businesses told their employees to head home, and within hours we had a classic Atlanta highway traffic jam combined with a ton of snow. There were over 800 traffic accidents. People were stranded in their cars or at work. People slept on the floor in grocery stores. Many people abandoned their cars on the highways and walked to safety. Total freaking mess. Now in Atlanta, a major snowfall is a very rare event, so we don't maintain the kind of infrastructure necessary to deal with snow the way they do in the north. What's actually more common is for Atlanta to get ice storms. These tend to happen every 3 to 4 years, and when you get an ice storm, that ice piles up on the tree branches and makes these tree branches super heavy. They snap off and start taking down the power lines, and your power's off for 3 days. So here we are with the most surprising natural disaster you may ever experience in Georgia. It is super rare, but we do in fact have earthquakes. Now you may think earthquakes only happen in California, and when you're talking about biblical level, end of the world type earthquakes, California definitely has us beat, but we do have earthquakes here in Georgia. Let me tell you about it. It was 2003. I'm in Richmond. My phone rings at 4 o'clock in the morning. My wife's on the other end. She said, "We just had an earthquake in Atlanta." And I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking my wife has just lost it. There's no earthquakes in Atlanta. I actually never knew it was such a possibility. But indeed, it was true. There was a 4.6 Richter scale earthquake that originated out of Alabama, and you could feel it all across the southeast. So as always, if you're thinking of making the move to Atlanta, please feel free to reach out to me. My information is in the box below. Love to talk to people when they're planning their move to Georgia. Hope to talk to you soon. Thanks.